Hello and welcome to the final topic for period 2 in APUS history. We're going to be discussing comparison in period 2. The learning objective from the College Board is to compare the effects of the development of colonial society in the various regions of North America. So, we're going to first talk about the skill of comparison. We're going to talk about the examples of comparison in period 2, and then I'm going to show you some of the comparison short answer question prompts that have been used by the College Board in the past few years. So, comparison is one of the three reasoning processes that are emphasized by the College Board. And these are the three processes that will be the focus of your essays. They also are part of your short answer questions and also part of the multiple choice questions. So, these are really the three most important cognitive operations that you will do on the AP exam. So, according to the College Board, this is what comparison is: describing the similarities or differences between different historical developments or processes, explaining the relevant similarities or differences, explaining the relevant historical significance of those similarities or differences. So, it's really important to note that similarities and differences are going to almost always be used together. And so, you want to make sure that you're really doing both of those things. So, the first place that we see comparison in period 2 is going to be in European colonization. And so, this lesson is focused on the four major European groups who colonized North America: the Spanish, the French, the Dutch, and the British. And if you look at my video on topic 2.2, you can see that I organized that lesson based on this graphic organizer, looking at where they were located, what was the goal of each empire, what were their characteristics in life, in culture in the region, and how did that affect American Indians? So, by looking at things like typically the British lived separate from American Indians, whereas the French lived amongst them. That would be a difference, or a similarity being that the Dutch and the British both wanted to rival Spain's wealth. And so, trying to first understand the content and then put it in a graphic organizer, and then seeking out what are similar between the groups and what are differences, that's going to really help you to understand how to complete comparison. The second major area that is the huge focus of the College Board is going to be comparing the English colonial regions. So the Chesapeake, New England, Middle, Southern colonies. So looking at what were the goals of the peoples living in those areas, what were the characteristics of life there, and the impact on American Indians. All of those things are going to be good factors to consider in how life was different or similar in these regions. So, I have a video on each of those regions, which you can see on this playlist. But ultimately, this chart is going to be finalized in the final video, which is 2.3D. So, in the past few years, there has been a comparison short answer question prompt in these 4 years. So in 2015, students were asked to compare the Chesapeake and New England colonies. In 2016, they were asked to compare the similarities and differences in the goals of the Spanish and English. In 2018, students were asked to compare the role of religion in the Spanish and New England. And in 2019, students were asked to compare the economies of the Chesapeake and the Middle. And so you can see that there is this emphasis over and over and over on similarities and differences in period 2, specifically looking at colonial settlement. And so there are various ways. There are other examples of comparison. For example, in period 2, you could compare different types of forced labor. You could compare indentured servitude to enslavement. But really, based on that objective, it's more focused on the colonial development. And so, what I've done here, I actually have a video on each of these short answer questions. So you can go find a video to help you know how to answer the short answer question. It's very likely, if you're an APUS history student right now, that your teacher would use one of these in class for you. So checking out those videos may help you be better prepared. But when you're completing a comparison prompt, these are my top tips. You want to discuss both aspects of the prompt whenever applicable. So, in these prompts, there are multiple colonial regions. In part A, you want to address both regions if you can. And because of that, your responses are likely going to be longer. These prompts are typically going to follow this format. Part A will ask you to describe a similarity of the colonial regions. Part B will ask you to describe a difference in the colonial regions. And part C will ask you to describe a reason or factor for that difference or an effect of the difference. And so, how you want to format your answer is to first state the similarity, the difference, the reason, or the effect. So, one sentence. One difference between New England and Chesapeake was their primary method of commerce or economics. And then you want to provide evidence and an explanation for the first aspect or the region. In New England, they had subsistence farms, but engaged in uh, the uh, the trade of lumber. And then you would provide evidence and explanation for the second aspect. In the Chesapeake, they were primarily agricultural and engaged in the export of tobacco. And so you can see how that's probably going to be a 3-sentence explanation for just part A, but it's definitely going to ensure that you get the point as long as your information is accurate. So, going back to the learning objective, compare the effects of development of colonial society in the various regions of North America. I hope this video highlighted that for you, but really check out the other videos that I referenced if you need a little bit more to understand the content to be able to complete similarities and differences. Thank you for watching. I hope it was helpful, and if so, please like and subscribe.